Hey everyone,
Hey everyone, how you doing?
I'm
Hey.
doing okay. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Yep. So what has everyone been up to recently?
Just living.
Oh, okay. What's your name? I don't think I've ever seen you before.
You haven't. I'm Hunter Hansen, hence
Hi, Hannah.
HQ.
Hi, Hannah. I'm John. Nice to meet you.
Hey, John. Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, pleasure to you too.
All right, are we ready to get going?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Yep, a couple more people in the waiting room.
All right, let's get him in here.
I will do that.
Is this autism?
Yeah, I'd say you're in the right place.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can hear
good.
you.
Yeah, we hear you all right.
That's good. How's everyone doing?
Fine.
I'm doing
Good.
pretty good. I'm actually new here.
Okay,
Oh,
no
you're
issues.
Ashley.
Okay,
Hey,
Ashley, my
Ashley.
name
Nice
is
to meet
Ted.
you.
Nice to meet
Hey
you all.
Ashley.
Still admitting a couple more people. Give it another minute or two. I think we're ready, Becca. I'll keep an eye on if anyone else comes in. So
Okay, sounds good. All right. So you guys, welcome back to Autistics Talk Money. If your memory serves you well and you can remember all the way back to December, Andrew and I promised you a guest for January, and here we are with our guest for January. So you guys, this is Hunter Hansen. Hunter is connected with Andrew and I on LinkedIn. He is a fairly new father for the second time, right? I think.
It'll be third.
Third. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, can't keep up with the little ones. And he also works for Apple, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his take on, I guess, money type things. I'll call it. Yeah. So welcome, Hunter.
Thanks for having me. I was driving back from an episode of some car stuff today, and I was like, I'm really flattered that you guys associated me with like money. It's one of the topics I actually don't bring up in a lot of my other venues or channels, and just for the rest of the group, it's kind of humbling and nice to be invited as a guest on these many things. And I went back and forth with Beck and Andrew, and I'm like, yo, I'm not like a financial guru. I'm not even a guru. Okay. And then, but I forget, whether it was Andrew Becker was like, was there like, have you ever used money before? I mean, don't you have some interesting thoughts? And I think I unspooled a little bit, and then it was like, okay, let's lock and load and let's try this. So I really do appreciate you having me, because
Absolutely.
some recent stories, some old things, and just as it is with autistic persons, my experience is my expertise, and it's very different. I grew up a different child with a very different background, being different anyway. So obviously my attitudes, opinions, and approaches to money and other pecuniary instruments is going to be different. So I'm happy to share what little I have in that.
awesome. And Hunter, and again, we try to keep it open. If someone's in the middle of a story and they haven't gone on too long, feel free to interrupt or try not to interrupt. If they're going on too long, go for it. But Hunter, I think you said you had two interesting stories. You want to just start us off?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'll kind of give you like the introduction and kind of like, let's start with the beginning, and I'm going to slingshot all the way up until present present day times. So I had the very rare experience of starting work early, like not early in the day. I do that, but I grew up in Iceland. So I got my first job when I was 14, which I lost 6 hours later. That's another story. Won't share it here. But you know, being autistic, right? Sometimes you get like the brain worm, and it's like I want to like be employed. I want to be an adult. I want to earn a paycheck. I want to have a job, you know, because I could talk to adults very easily, right? So it was easier to relate, to get along, because kids and peers my age, you know, they just didn't get it. I'd use multisyllabic words and they'd be like, what's multisyllabic? And I'm like, okay, well, we're just gonna try, and then we're gonna move on here. But I actually worked for a Department of Defense sub-agency as a 15-year-old. No joke. So that's how I start, because then it sounds interesting. But the reality is I actually worked for the commissary at Naval Air Station Keflavik, Iceland. So it's pretty cool. Got to mingle, but like my checks were literally from the US government. And I don't know if it was so much like an autistic thing, but I had a very weird, like, I guess like a fixation on just saving, which was strange. Like, I guess that I don't know if, you know, collecting things and autism intersect. That's a joke. I know they do. So it was like, you know what? I liked having a bank account. I liked watching it grow. I liked stashing money. I wasn't so obsessed with, you know, becoming like the modern day Croesus or Solomon or what have you. But it was really interesting to, you know, live an experience as a teenager and go to college, you know, at 16 and walk on campus and not be a broke college student. Like, I had money, had a lot of it. I just didn't know what to do with it. That has since changed, because I have, you know, I have a mortgage, I have 3 children, I like expensive watches, and, you know, like every now and again it's like, oh, hey, maybe I can actually get something, you know. But there's a lot to maintain. But it's funny though, my recent stories, I'm trying to remember like what the second one was. But no, there are 2. I remember them now. But I'm starting to realize that as you evolve in life, there's money dials, there's instruments. For me, I'm very glad that my obsession is not, it's not wealth to a degree that it's harming me. And to some it's like really awesome, like I'm all about building wealth, that's great. But for me, it's like my new wealth is time. It's like I would buy time now. And I'm starting to have those conversations with my spouse to say, okay, I lack the requisite skills to do X, Y, and Z. This one thing has not caused us any kind of harm, and my whole thing is just like, it's just money. We can pay our way out of this. So story 1, I was in a meeting, wife backs out of the garage with our Lincoln MKT, and I'm talking oddly enough with another autistic person at work. He's a delight. And my office sits right above our garage, and then I hear and feel a very loud thump, and I'm like, okay, that's anomalous. I know that's not just something that just happened. So I can hear the swearing, which is bad because, again, 3 children, but I can hear it, and it's like, oh God, what's happening now? So my wife, she really like wrecked the mirror coming back out of it. We've done this to all our cars, and she's just, you know, she's devastated. I'd be emotional too, and upset about how much it's gonna set us back. And I realized, like, you know, the way I'm looking at it, like I realize there's no other option. Like for me emotionally, it's like this needs to be fixed in a certain way with a requisite level of complexity and expertise that a dealer could provide with paint. This is technically solved through money. Do we have enough? Yes. Am I going broke? No. Does this affect me? No. And it's almost like I went through that decision tree and bypassed all the emotions, which I love. I don't always feel that way about everything, but it's like, it's nice to know that, like, hey, this is just one aspect of my being, to where as a father, someone who, again, I was just trying to get through a work day. And then, yeah, similarly enough, is that actually that same garage where it shattered. I was sitting on top of my Lincoln, just disappointed. And I'm like, you know what, Hunter, you don't know how to fix this. You don't have the time. But like my parents said, just pay a man and do it. You know, like it's not hard. This is a means to an end. And like I, you know, hired some really nice kid, Joey, got it done during a meeting of mine when I was hosting. So it was weird having drilling literally under my chair. Like, wow, the sound of it feels jarring. But yeah, so it's like, that's kind of like there's a lot in between. There has been a lot of challenges and struggles. I'm hoping we can wind the bend around there. But I think in my autistic brain, I get to use a little bit more rationality, just toward like the other aspects of my life, where it can really reduce a lot of anxiety. Like, oh my gosh, I'm worried that I don't know how to fix it. Okay, I don't care. I can dip into this other element. For some, I have to dip into my expertise. For others, it's like, okay, I have the time to do this. But now it's like, okay, sometimes, hey, I do have, some money as an instrument. Not always. Sometimes that's a little daunting too. We have larger challenges that are going to take longer to solve. So yes, that's the intro to one story, two of my partial stories. And I'm doing that neurodivergent thing to where I can just, wow, unspool in one breath and call it good. So that's all I had. However you want to dovetail off of that, be my guest and we'll keep this ball rolling here.
Well, I think what I was really interested in is the way you described kind of bypassing the emotions of it all, and kind of just going through the decision tree, which I feel like is a common enough thing for folks on the spectrum. It's certainly the way I process things. It's certainly why I think I'm one of the better people to have around you in an emergency too, right?
Yes.
It's just how my brain kind of does things. It's like, well, wait, I don't, the emotions don't do anything for me. I need to physically just help the situation, right? And so that's how my brain works too. And so what I find really interesting is that even in going through this other scenario that has to do with finances, we still process that stuff so differently than other people do, right? It was so interesting to just hear you kind of describe that for us.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's a little bit different too. So, for example, and it surrounds a lot the history with money too. So, I have to talk to a lot of individuals who have savings, but they don't feel that they can spend it. They feel that that's a step back, not a step forward. And that's why I say, well, don't call it an emergency fund because, well, then is this truly an emergency? That an emergency, right?
Yeah.
It's money that's there if you need it. It's not an emergency fund. And, but distancing yourself from the money, using it as a tool is absolutely the way to go, and really reframe from saying, I know people who've, struggled and then saved, he needed a new car and, was upset or was very worried about his bank account going back down. And it's no, that's what the money is there for, right? It's meant to do that. And with the car, well, there's an immediate solution to the problem, right? And it can be fixed. One of my examples is in the winter last year, we left the garage open in, Connecticut, and it was like 0 degrees and the pipes burst. And the plumber recommended that I shower upstairs for 3 months until it got warmer to properly fix the pipe, which normally probably would have been a fine recommendation, except I would shower first thing in the morning before leaving the house if it was burning. So as far as routines go, that I guess there are worse ones, but the thought of needing to use a different shower for a couple months into a tailspin, right? I paid whatever it cost to have fixed it. That's an easy problem, right? Okay, money solved, one day it's done, versus, well, maybe I'll be able to get back to my routine in 3 months. So it's interesting in that aspect, how sometimes money can be the simplest way to solve problems. Again, assuming it's available and used correctly.
Right.
I think that's the other, because I realize and Becca, this trust me, this word still resonates. Like I have to reckon with the fact that I'm in a spot now, just by dint of, I would just say the $2 trillion fruit company. I'm extremely fortunate to, let's just say, be gainfully employed. That is not always the case for many people on the spectrum. But I remember when I was not working, at like literally a rural, religious school. It was a pittance. It was like literally eating a banana, an orange, bowl of cereal, and a bowl of ramen, and like little else during the day. And and like then at that point, it's like your money and what you have it doesn't feel like much of a tool at that point, you know? So like there's that other end of the spectrum of, you know, trying to like think a little bit around more of the emotional and like jarring aspects of just like right now as it stands, this is a scarcity. I did, however, have a lot of time. I did, however, have a lot of like space to explore other interests and, you know, freedom to do things. But that's hard. Like if I could go back and tell my former self, it's like I'd say, one, switch up your diet, like work out a little bit more. Like you'd be surprised how much more you could do with this. But just seeing like, you know, like you may be at a deficit of resources in one aspect, and money just straight up may be at a deficit for a time. You know, for the next year, I might be plowing through cash to do some other thing. My kids are healthy. That could change. One car accident and it's like, well, okay, or a rare strain of, you know, illness. And it's like, well, we're paying the doctors to do that. Like that. And like, Andrew, you said it best, that goes up and down. It just does. There's these vicissitudes and circles of life that just do that, you know? And like, again, it's not a money thing, but even now it's like, I do enjoy a certain work-life balance now that I did not a year ago, you know, where it was like, hey, I have no time, great prestige here in this other space, but it has eroded all my time. And now with 3 young children, you know, I have no sleep. So it's like, okay, well, I don't sleep. So, you know, what am I doing? I'm getting more quality time with my children at nighttime, you know? So it's good perspective, but I will say it's acquired through some suffering. You know, wisdom is like knowledge with suffering, basically. And I just wish I could impart that to my younger self or other versions of myself, to where like, look, I wish I didn't have to learn this the hard way, but you know, I'm glad I'm still trying to learn a bit.
And I think a lot of individuals especially struggle with, you know, impulse control, and that can make it hard to save to the point where you do have money for when you need things. So for everyone watching who wants to get to where you are, right? Is this something that's natural, that you've had, that you've learned? I feel part of it is just a little bit of getting older, right? But then any advice you would have?
I don't know if that was directed to me, but I
Oh,
will.
it was, but it's
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Thank
like,
you.
wait, oh, I am the
Clarification's not bad.
No, this is a good one, because my wife and I joke a lot about how we don't get into trouble like other couples do. She's neurotypical, but we're both very frugal. We're both savers, and we're not foodies, you know? So it's like, we joke about like, well, you know, we have a lot to do a lot. I'm not sure whether it's entirely autism or upbringing or a combination of both, but I do find I'll give kind of a good story, and I share this with other people for other ventures. I'm really good at determining where I have very little impulse control and where I have a ton. So, to wit, if I were to bring in a bag of spicy tortilla chips to my home, my joke is that if I want to eat an entire bag of chips, I just have to open it and I will then eat them. I don't drink. I just know that I have like a certain addictive personality to where I would get I just know I'd get obsessed with wine and all the history and like become an expert, and then probably drink too much. There's other special interests, TV shows that it's like, I don't want to watch any Breaking Bad because I know I'm going to get sucked into it. So it's almost like, because I know I have these propensities, I'm a little better at restraining when I can see the end of it and realize like, okay, I have such a potential to be obsessed with it. So bizarrely, one of the things that helped me like in my weight loss journey from becoming a whale to a walrus, I don't fight the food battle at home. I fight it with my wallet at the grocery store, where it's really easy. Like I'll just look and say, I don't need the Oreos. I just don't. Like I know where I'm really good at the impulse. So I think a lot of it's just checks and balances too. I am married, so we have other things and children to take care of. But just some things are a product of being easier, and then knowing like, hey, I can go a little bit crazier in some things. Like I can be obsessed about these non-harmful interests like wristwatches, battle bots, other things that don't require significant outlay, and then know like, you know what, I can keep this dial a lot tighter when I need to, and then loosen it up when I don't want to, you know? So I don't go to Starbucks. I don't buy a Starbucks coffee, you know, like my friends do, but my friends have not gone to Paris and stayed there 10 days. And I have. So it's like, I'm kind of looking at like when I want to flex, I want to make it big versus, you know, hey, I want to just keep the spigot open entirely. I don't know if that helps, but it is nice to know that like you can keep the dial loose enough to where like if I really want to loosen it, I just want to let gush, or as tight as I can be for the things that I just really am not passionate about. And the same applies with a lot, but for me personally, that's kind of where my spending goes. So of course now
agree
I'm not traveling,
with-
you know, but you know.
I agree with you, Hunter. That's a, you know, to make your decision at the grocery store. But another good thing that works is not shopping when you're hungry, because it's really
Yes.
hard to make that decision when you're hungry, because, you know, like you got low blood sugar, which makes it harder to fight, you know, and have that resolve, and everything looks good. And so you end up buying a bunch of crap that you're going to regret later, and you're going to regret
Yeah.
having eaten it.
That's why, due to calamities, I always joke. It's like my family is very much gallows humor, but there's always something that happens. So the family joke is, hey, be sure you eat before going out to eat. You just never know, you know. So it's almost like make sure you're just taking care of it at a certain level, even if literally you are going to take care of yourself. So that's unrelated, but reminds me of.
I just want to take a minute and answer some of the questions in chat, or at least pose the questions in chat rather. Somebody asked, do we think more before spending money? Which I think is an interesting question. Do we as autistics think more, right, before spending money? And then I thought, well, do people who have kind of struggled with finances, do that group of people think more before spending money? Right. So I posed the question from Renato. Do we think more before spending money?
Yeah. So I think, for example, myself, although I could spend money, I have the money to spend, but for example, instead of going something like this, I just want to buy, like behaving by impulse, I say, okay, it's beautiful. This jacket's beautiful. That shoes are beautiful, but I don't need. So, or maybe change the car, for example. I like this. I like this car, this brand new car. But do I have my old one that is great? So why should I change my car? I don't know, but I saw some years ago. I saw a video from Warren Buffett, and it's interesting that even though he's rich, his wealth, he has the same habits as he was like as he had less money. So he doesn't change his car. He always goes to McDonald's. He has the same behavior. I don't know. Myself, sometimes to please myself, once in a while, I spend, but like huge expenses, I don't want, because do I really need? So sometimes in the vast majority of time, I think if I need or do not need to buy something or to spend money on something that I definitely don't need.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit a couple of ones ago when we talked about want versus need, right? And we had a whole conversation about when we're sitting there, are we able to differentiate between want versus need, right? And all of that stuff. So this is really that controlling that impulse of want and need, right? And kind of knowing the difference, right?
I just talk about rationality, because that's what I meant.
Right.
So that's much more rational. Like we on the spectrum, we are more rational rather than emotional, because our minds function has a better functionality with code skills, which are really close to rational thinking, critical, and analytical. The code skills like not rational but emotional, thinking about compassion. So I think involving rationality and thinking on every scenarios, or about predicting.
Right. Does anybody
So
feel
much more about rational thinking.
Right. Does anybody
Not-
else feel like they have a different experience with money, that it's not
Yeah,
quite
I
so
was just gonna
rational?
say, when Renato was saying we on the spectrum are rational, well, I'm on the intersection of the autism spectrum and I have ADHD. And so I tend to be an impulsive and an emotional shopper. Like if I'm upset or it used to be like when I was angry at my husband, I'd go out and spend something ridiculous just to get back at him because he's extremely frugal. But yeah, that I think I've matured a little bit since then. But I am definitely impulsive and I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, ADHD brain.
I will keep asking these philosophical questions in the chat then, which the
Oh,
next question is,
When
how
I go
much
to
is
the
enough?
grocery store, I write a list about what I need sometimes, and then I just so that I can just go get out of there quickly.
Right, a
Because
lot
the
of
longer that you statistically, the longer that you spend at a store, the more apt you're able to buy something.
absolutely. So that's another way to think about saving.
Yeah,
Kayla?
particularly when it wears you down, like being in a store is like
Yeah.
sensory overload. So your resolve gets even weaker the longer you have to be in there. But even with the list, I will still end up, doing something impulsive.
All right. So what does everybody think about how much is enough? Right? How much is enough money, I guess, is really the question. When is it enough? So how do we make that decision when we're in a secure place, I guess, about money, when we've reached the place where we don't have to worry about saving quite so much anymore? I don't know. I'm going to toss this to you, Andrew. How do you know when when enough is enough?
So I really think there's a happy medium, right, between the people who just save and never spend it and just like to see it grow, and the people who don't have enough. And I usually find they end up marrying each other and meet somewhere in the middle. But no, in theory, I think it's not about how much money you have. It's really about the lifestyle you want to live and the amount of spending that you're, doing. And so, for example, I have a client who, he could write a check for $1 million and it would clear from his bank account, right? He will go out of his way to save $10, maybe $100, spend hours doing so. He gets some enjoyment out of things, and he gets a lot of enjoyment out of getting a deal. For him, it's about getting value. It's a little bit of fun. I do think it stresses him out probably a little bit too much, but for him, he has this lifestyle where he's happy with the things that he has. He gives, thought to the things that he buys, and maybe even a little bit too much, doesn't spend money on things that he wants. He was asking me an alternative to Quicken, and I said, just bluntly, why do you need to balance a checkbook again? Right? Like, you don't need to. So, and he goes, yeah, you're right. Okay. So it's really about how do you want to live? What do you want to do? And then you can kind of solve for the money part first, right? The money part in my mind is secondary. So all the, online it says you need this much to retire, that much to retire. I know people who can't retire with $2 million because of the mortgage, the kids, the spending. And I know people who retire exceptionally well with almost no money saved because they worked for, you know, a state government, for example, and have a great pension. So there really isn't an answer to the money question, if that
So what
makes
I
sense.
think is interesting about it, of course, because I do totally the opposite work from you, is that it still comes down to that whole thing about priorities that I talk about all the time. If you don't know what your priorities are and you don't know what your values are, right, you're not going to really be able to make smart decisions about money, because you need to know how much you need when you get to enough, right? Here, like, this is the life I want to be living, right? And this is, money is part of a million things I need to get there, right? It's not the only thing, it's part of the million things, right? But I like this conversation because I can taste the question coming, right? Because I know Andrew and I have talked about this a lot, which is, does money buy happiness? Right? Can money buy happiness? Right? We talked about it already as a tool, and it can be. It's not the only tool, it's one of many, right? But can money buy happiness?
Money can't buy happiness. No, it cannot buy happiness because money does not fill a void that is inside of you, like that is like it's only a temporary fix that can fix something mentally. It cannot fix the whole issue.
I like the meme that exists and it says, can money buy happiness? And the answer is yes, because it says, well, money can buy a penguin. And have you ever met somebody who owns a penguin who's unhappy?
What is it? Oh, there's that one quote. I think I saw it on like a Jack Handy thing. All I ask for is a chance to prove that money can't buy happiness. You know,
Right.
like it's funny because I think thinking of it literally, the direct dynamic of like purchasing happiness as a concept or having it, no. But then as I'm going through my garage story, I like all the joys that would be manipulated by that. Like, I can pay my way to have this solved. I was happy with the outcome. I just was. So it was,
how do we define, you kind of said it, right? Because
yeah,
how do we make that difference between joy, right, and happiness,
it's
right?
almost
'Cause
like, do
they're
you know what
not-
makes you happy?
Right.
Like
And so, but we don't, when we usually talk about happiness, we talk about it in this kind of overreaching sense, right? That it's a more longer term thing, right?
Yeah.
And yet the joy that we get from a purchase is, short-lived, right?
Yeah.
In relation to happiness itself as the bigger whole.
And that's where
So-
I have someone I know, he mentioned that he just stopped buying, like, some people like toys make them happy. And one of my best friends, I think he bought a $500 robot that draws on his wall. And I'm like, one, like, that would have been like, a percentage of a down payment on a good watch. Why would you spend 500 for that? But what makes him happy is technology, toys. That's his thing. For me, like, even an expensive or prestige, and again, mind you, very occasional, like once in a decade kind of thing, I want that to carry further than just the money I put into it. I'll give a very small example because it's modest, but there's a watch, the model of which is called the Orion. And I got that because I like the product, but also because I spent years working on a project that had that name. So it always comes out as a story. It's unique. And I think less about the money that went into it to buy it, and more of, like, this isn't nice just because it's expensive. It wasn't, but it was more of like, I like that I can tell a good story about it. I like that I remember it brought me together. There's an autistic YouTuber named Orion Kelly. So I'm reminded, like, of that kind of connection. And it's the same with that, or like memories. I am glad I went to Paris. I talk about it very frequently, and I realized I live through memory. We all technically do. That's worth, like, for me, it was a justified purchase. Like, hey, it's my 10-year wedding anniversary. I can do something nice for myself. It's about time. But instead of buying a product, which I knew the luster on that would fade, I went and bought a big old bank of memories and some hilarious episodes, and getting lost on the metro and stepping on people's feet and getting cussed out. So, like, a lot of interesting things to where it was indirect, but I didn't go to Paris for free. I'll just put it right there, So it's like, I had to think about what is going to make me happy what gets me there. I can't buy a day off. I just can't. You know, I'm very committed to my family, but having time to myself, as many autistic people can relate, just being able to pursue your own interests, like I would love to pay for that, but I don't have the mechanism to do so. So sometimes it's like I can't just buy myself a day in the ether.
Right.
You know, so there's some interesting intersections to where it does go toward what makes you happy and sparks joy versus where, you know what, you can't just pay 3 children 5 and under to watch themselves for a day, but I can pay somebody to do that. So yeah, maybe there is a way to do it.
I don't know.
Oh,
that's okay.
I wondered if a more productive way of phrasing that, can money buy your happiness, is, can money buy you out of unhappiness? Can it buy your way out of unhappiness? Because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. Like Burnett has a colleague who just wants to retire someday and never work again. So she's just unhappy with work or her job and life. And I think a lot of people, they think that they can pay their way out of unhappiness. Because I think that money can buy you these moments of joy. Like I got a new video game controller today, and that was exciting. But pretty soon it's just going to be another video game controller. And so I have this joy from the video game controller, but to actually get like sustainable joy, I was in therapy for years and just constantly working and studying and meditation and just learning how to actually be a joyful person rather than trying to derive temporary joy from moments. I think it's great to do that, but I think it's great to understand that joy can be, and happiness can be, just your daily intention, your default way of being.
Yeah.
I like that perspective.
I agree. Yeah. Go ahead, Hunter.
Oh no, I just said I like that perspective.
Right. I do too. I like that idea because I think that negative, I don't want to say it as though it's a negative and a bad thing, but that negative perspective, that way of coming at situations and looking at it in that negative way, like in the unhappiness way instead of the happiness way, right? And so, and I love that because I think you're right. I think when we really look at the question of money buying happiness, right, what we're really wanting to know is, can I get out of this unhappiness with money? Like, is there a fast, easy way out of this unhappiness? Please, someone tell me that there's a fast, easy way, right? And to us, that's money, right? We think that's the fast, easy way out of this unhappiness. But I think what we do find is, yes, temporarily it can, right? But even if you think you're unhappy where you're living at the moment, and so you get up and you move, right? You're taking that unhappiness with you if you're not bringing the changes that you want to bring with them, right? And I think it's that same idea with money. I'm somebody who, A, I've always struggled with money. B, I don't like money. I think money is the root of all evil, right? And C, I really am not somebody who's ever had a lot of money. So I've always kind of lived a life where I was kind of in the negative in that way, in that financial way. And then I look at it, right, in this money by happiness thing, and then I go, well, does that mean that all the times that I thought I was happy while I had no money, I was not really happy because I didn't have money? No, I still experienced happiness, right? So I get in this weird place. So I don't have an answer to this question, because I do think in some ways money can get you closer to your goal. But it depends to me on how you define happiness, right?
Yeah, and also, like, it's true because the resources for, I didn't need, I guess over the years of therapy, I didn't need a lot of money. I did pay a lot. And learning about meditation, that did cost money. And then exercising and the various things you need for various types of exercise. So you do need money to improve your life. And if you're living in a bad place and you need money to live in a better place, but I don't have an answer.
Right. It's so fascinating to me because I can see both sides of it, right? And I can look at it and see the obvious equation of like, what do you mean? I can go and buy my favorite car that I've been dreaming of for the last, 50 years, and I would be way happy, right?
And then you hit the garage and then realize,
right. And then, so that's the whole idea, right? And then it's like, but how quickly is that taken from you, right? And so, but the memories, not so quickly can they be taken, right? And so how do we decide what are the happinesses that are most important to us, I guess?
the happinesses that are most important, I believe, is like a relationship with your family, your kids, your like family, like when you spend time with them, doing stuff with them on it. And that's what matters. That's what makes the money worth more while to do it with.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, like I really was meaning like that money can't buy happiness after you buy a product because it's temporary, the happiness. It will fade away like at the same time, like once like you buy something new, it's gonna become old anyway.
Right. But then at the same time, right, it also, the longer you have something, the more memories you have attached to it.
Yeah, that's true.
You have with it, right? So it's really a double-edged sword. That to me, that really feels like there's no one right answer to this question, which is why it comes up, I think, so often. So thank you for indulging my philosophical brain on that.
No, that was like, and I think you made like the whole endorphin rush of a purchase. Like, kind of, you're right. Like that just, it almost fades too quickly, you know. And I'm sure some of you all have purchased new iPhones. Like it was nice when I first got them every 2 years and it was thrilling. And now it's just, I need a new one. Okay. And that's it. It's just functional. It's like, even if it's something I want, it's like, okay, cool. But then that whole rush of it, you can't extend that. You can't really, like, and it's very rare unless it's something that you get to enjoy in that same sense every day. And I'm trying to think of stuff, but again, I think like psychologically, we adapt to our comforts extremely well. And I mean, like every new threshold, you will then settle and then find your discontentment. So, I mean, that's a good point about just like the transactional endorphin rush. It's, I mean, it feels cool and I've done it. It's like, wow, this is awesome. And this thing is so cool. But then now I'm realizing I won't think it's all that cool a year from now, you know, and it's sad, but it's also like, it's comforting. Like, you know, this is how it's going to be. And that's all right. And I know that I just need to push different buttons. So yeah, or know what those buttons lead to where I can build sustaining self-sufficient avenues of happiness that grow in different ways there.
Yeah, really interesting.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
I kind of think with the whole thing of like money can't buy happiness is kind of like it's almost like love languages, how it's different from person to person. Like for some people, just having money is more important than having a relationship with other people, and some people it's not. Like with some people, their love language is personal time, and for some people, it's giving gifts or getting gifts. That all just like it depends on the person on whether money buys happiness or not.
I did not even think about the love languages component in this piece, but you're right? Because we're all kind of programmed in a different way about what are the things that kind of make our endorphins go, right? And what are the things that really get us excited about life and all of that stuff. And I am absolutely somebody who would rather spend $1 million on somebody else, because if it's the perfect present for that perfect person and it's just so right, I don't care about the price. I just think it's awesome, right? Like it's the perfect thing for that person. I cannot do that for myself, right? I can't just be like, hey, Beck, that's an awesome t-shirt for you. You should go get it right now. I always go, no, Beck, you're going to wait until it goes on sale for 25%, right?
Yep.
And so like, there's a different thing about it for people, right? Like some people truly can enjoy the gifts that they give themselves. I'm not somebody who can do that. And the only way I found around it is to gift myself something like a tattoo, which is something that's permanent and doesn't lose its kind of meaning and its importance. But I struggle with that. And so your love language, I think, does play a role in here. Some of us certainly had parents who tried to teach us that money was love, right? Or money wasn't love, right? All of those things. So we've got a lot of mess in there around just this simple tool, right?
That's a good point. When I was a kid, I'm the youngest of 6 older brothers, and my mother was not, the most loving person, kind of very harsh and abusive at times. And I was picked on a lot. And the only time I ever felt like the family actually cared about me was on birthdays and Christmas, when you'd get presents from them, because like nobody ever, there was no demonstrative affection in my family of origin. There was no like, good job, I'm proud of you. Or even like if you had a problem and you wanted to talk to someone about it, there was no holding space for you. It was kind of like, oh, what are you bitching about? You should see my problems as an adult. If you think you're worried about that as a kid, wait till you become an adult, kind of thing. So there was just none of that, and the other thing I wanted to say was, I really like Michael's point about the love languages, but another love language is being of service to others, which doesn't actually cost any money. And that is one that I do. I make paintings for people, or I sew things for people. And, I'm the opposite of what my mom was. And that was like by deliberate choice.
Yeah, that's a really salient point. I joke that my spouse is it's like, why did you have to be a love language polyglot? What I have found though, and it's a good reflection, but I'm kind of glad that our avenues aren't so much buying each other things, so like that does help us. I think even if it were, we'd probably be aware of that and handle our money differently to allow for it, i.e. we can sacrifice more time to accumulate more of this instrument to better express love to one another. But hers, honestly, it's time, my most precious resource. But if it's like, hey, I'm off 2 hours early, that gets a celebration. It doesn't matter for what. It's usually to change diapers or just grab all 3 of my girls and run. But it's like, that's legitimately a thing. Like for me, there's some things I don't care about. I think it's like acts of, for me being autistic, it's acts of service that clear the tracks. Like I don't like a good one is emptying the dishwasher, and we'll get to money somehow. I'm gonna try to loop back around, but like emptying the dishwasher, I don't know why. I'm not challenged in executive function as much as I think, unless it comes to emptying the dishwasher, and I just grind to a halt. I don't care who does it, and I don't need to do that. Like it just needs to be done. So the routine has to be done for me to feel balanced, whether I do it or not. I came home from shopping and there's my middle child, Zoe. She's like, Dad, we're emptying the dishes. And it was like, oh, I just heard you say, I love you. And my wife's like, we're all doing it. I'm like, I know you could have done so many things, but this says I love you to me.
Right.
Doing things, and like for some, it's just it's a money tied kind of thing. Like I got you something nice, or I did something here, or we saved this sort of thing. Or like Becky, you mentioned like getting a good deal. Like I don't know who doesn't like that, but it's one where
Such
it's
a
like,
good feeling.
it is a good feeling. It's like I got something nice for less than, but like that's like, and I think my wife's probably more aligned with that aspect, but just I don't mind spending as long as I know I've saved a significant amount doing it, and then it starts pushing the right button. So it's really cool to see that intersection. But I think in general, it's just the greater knowledge of what is this a means to.
Right.
Another good point that you guys make about getting a good deal. Yes, it is a great feeling. Then why is it that like after I buy something online, people will send me emails like through my cookies or something, letting me know how much I got ripped off, because if I bought it through them, I could have gotten a better deal. It's like,
That's just marketing, Michelle. I'm sorry about that. This is just the way marketing works.
Might be best to check the prices and be sure that's true, because just because someone says that doesn't mean it's true. You need to compare prices and see if what they're saying matches what's really going on, because they might
Right.
just
well,
want more
I
money.
do compare, and and when I make my purchase, I'm convinced I've made the best purchase. But then, like 2 weeks later, I get these emails, saying that I could have gotten it better. Well, where was that deal 2 weeks ago when I was looking?
That is when that sometimes just joy gets stolen, right? We try not to have it happen too much, but you don't know what happens 2 weeks in the future, and you're not supposed to be beating yourself
Oh, you know what I do I do taxes for tax season. And like when we make a mistake with their money, it's even more stressful to my boss and I, because I check the returns and like if he makes like I heard like they owe a lot of money, they start screaming at him.
Oh my
I hear
goodness.
it because if it's money, if it has to do with money, they have to scream. They scream at them for because because money is important to what they can buy and what they know what they're going to do with the returns and their
Right.
And
tax returns.
I think that's really important. And I do want able accounts were asked about a couple
Yes, thank
times. So
you.
I do want to
Got
just
it.
take that. But I think it's also a lot about how people see the money. So for example, I'm a financial planner. I help you with lots of things. I manage lots of money. So, you know, when in March, when the markets went down quite a bit and people were very upset that their money was going down, I help reframe by saying, you're still going to be okay, right? You're still going, assuming that's true. I'm not going to lie to them, but right, if we hold in there, things will come back. They always have. You will be okay, right? But I had clients who were saying, now I don't think I can retire. Now I can't do this. Now I can't buy that. And again, this is their life savings. They didn't have a pension. And the ones who listened to the advice, they came back better than they were. And that's really where, you know, it comes in. It's the money. Some people get happiness out of pure just hoarding money, but I think the majority of people, right, it's what the money will enable them to be able to do. And I wanted to talk about able accounts. Is an able account a good place to save? Saving money in a tax advantage way is never a bad idea. I will absolutely say that every time somebody asks. So I think an able account can be a great idea. I have an able account myself. I've helped hundreds open them. So I'd look at the reason you're considering opening an able account, if there's better options. But if there's too many and it's too overwhelming, right, and you want to do something, it's definitely better than doing nothing. It's never a bad idea to save money on a tax advantage basis while protecting any benefits you might be on without knowing more. I encourage it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's just about our time for this month, you guys. Thank you so much, Hunter, for joining us. Do you have anything you want to plug or let folks know where to find you or all of that fun stuff before we?
Yeah, it's like I have things to plug now. No, I do encourage you to check out my YouTube channel. I have not done a finance episode, but I've been very fortunate to see that space grow. So, oh, hold on, let me find my link. I'll chat this really quick because it's kind of a mouthful. So if you want to check the YouTube stuff for those who enjoy, look, I try to make it humorous. It's engaging. So that's one. And then if you want to do more words versus moving pictures, thelifeautistic.com is another resource. Otherwise, I'm kind of winding down my Twitter presence, but I do a lot on Instagram. I try to keep it a little more buttoned down on LinkedIn. But yeah, by all means, I appreciate this opportunity, Andrew, Becca, sincerely. This is a good conversation. And I like this venue because there's just so many great viewpoints, considerations. And Bernard, I'm going to stick with that whole money to get you out of like misery thing. That's so true. My plumbing issues caused me misery. I want to be lifted out of that. And I would like hot water back in my upstairs bathroom and to shower in my master bathroom now. So Andrew, I'm with you on that. I've had to, do without for a bit, and it does alter my routines, and it is ridiculous. But no, thanks so much. And I would just say, I think y'all hit on the points to where, I may have joked darkly about thinking that I can be happy from sad rich people, but I know plenty of content people who just find hey, you know what, the money's not there, but I have time, I have knowledge, curiosity, skill. And I even joke that I run a channel off literally an iPhone and a $10 camera stand. It's very bare bones, it's very Spartan, but you know what, you make do with what you have, and it's a good story. And I hope you all can kind of find your joys, whether it is wealth creation, manipulation, generation, what have you. So, but yeah, it was good talk, really good talk. Thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Awesome. All right, you guys, we will see you next month. I do not know the date off the top of my head, but I'm sure you will get many emails about it before then. And we'll try to come up with a really good topic or a really good guest for next month, right, Andrew?
Yep, and it is the 17th at 3:30 Eastern. It's the third Wednesday. I have 6 4K monitors in front of me, so it's very easy to have my calendar open.
Oh,
you
man.
know, and a bunch of other things. So yes,
Man, that's enough to give you a tan, dude. Seriously.
I'm
Right.
told more than 6 is excessive. So
Okay.
That was the
Just
limit.
borderline excessive. That's dude, oh man, I'd be jealous, but I'm like, I cannot pivot my head for all that real estate.
No,
So
it's too distracting for me as well. All right, you guys have a good one. I think that's it for us. And I will see you guys next month with Andrew, and go and check out Hunter's stuff. He does some great YouTube videos.
thank you.
awesome. Thank you all.
Thank
Cheers.
you.